Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really fascinating paper by Sung-Kun Yang and So-Young Kim. And for all you researchers and policy watchers out there, this one is for you. It unpacks a major paradox at the heart of South Korea's economy, one that honestly has lessons for industrial regions all over the world. So the whole study kicks off with this big puzzle. South Korea is a global innovation powerhouse, right? But the very region that built its economic miracle is now, well, it's in decline. And one of the biggest red flags, young women are leaving in droves. We're talking a massive exodus that could really threaten the region's entire future.
And just look at these numbers. This isn't just a small trend. The data shows this incredible demographic imbalance. In an industrial city like Ulsan, you've got almost 130 men for every 100 women in their 20s. Now, that's not just some random fluke. It's a huge signal that there's a deep structural problem going on.
So this exodus creates what the paper calls a central paradox. Think about it. The region that literally powered the nation's incredible growth is now struggling to hold on to the very talent it needs to innovate and transform for the future.
Okay, so to really get what's happening, we've got to go back in time. We need to look at how this whole Southeastern manufacturing cluster, we're talking cities like Busan and Ulsan, was even built in the first place. The history here is everything.
All right, picture this. From the late 60s through the 80s, there was this massive state-led push for industrialization. It completely transformed this area into the country's biggest heavy industry hub. This was the engine behind the famous Miracle on the Han River.
And who was hired to run all these new factories and shipyards? Well, over 90% of the workers were men. This set up a very specific kind of society, Men were the breadwinners, the factory workers, while women were largely expected to play a supporting role in the family.
This history, this unique setup, is so crucial to the problems the region faces today that the paper actually comes up with a whole new concept to explain its lasting effects. And this is the key. It's not just about who got hired 40 years ago. The authors say it's about a deeply embedded system that they call industrial patriarchy. And this, right here, is the big idea they bring to the table. So what is industrial patriarchy? It's how the entire ecosystem, everything, from social norms and what you study in school to the jobs you can get, it all became organized around these male-dominated heavy industries. This created this powerful lock-in effect that's still very much alive today.
It basically works like a pipeline, and it systematically filters women out at every single step. It starts with education, pushing men towards engineering. Then it continues into the job market, which is totally segregated, and it ends with women being almost completely excluded from the region's innovation system.
Now, the authors don't just throw this theory out there. They build this really compelling case for it. They dig into the evidence using everything from text mining and policy analysis to some pretty sophisticated economic modeling. The first piece of evidence is just, wow. They used text mining to analyze thousands of policy documents, and what they found was pretty stark. When it comes to the official conversation about the region's technological future, the word women is practically invisible.
And this table just drives the point home perfectly. They looked at the official industrial plans for these regions, and across the board, nothing. These are the documents that decide where billions in investment go. And they completely failed to even mention gender or the barriers women face in the workforce.
This blindness in policy has very real consequences, and it starts in the education system. Look at this. In this region, women are actually well represented in the natural sciences, over half. But then you look at engineering, the field that feeds the local industries, and that number just plummets to under 20%. It's a huge drop-off.
And of course, that broken educational pipeline leads directly to a segregated workforce. The region's biggest industries, shipbuilding, automotive, steel, they have some of the lowest percentages of female employees in the entire country.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question, right? For any economist or policymaker watching, this is what matters. Does this systematic exclusion of half the population, does it actually hurt the region's ability to innovate and compete? And here it is. This is probably the paper's most powerful finding. They ran an analysis on individual firms, and what they found was that everywhere else in South Korea, having more women on staff is a strong predictor of innovation. But in the Southeastern region, that positive effect completely vanishes. It's statistically insignificant. Let's just let that sink in. What this means is that the system of industrial patriarchy is so powerful, so entrenched, that it actively smothers the innovation benefits that women bring to companies everywhere else.
The regional culture itself just cancels out their potential. So the huge takeaway here is that this isn't just a social problem or, a simple mismatch in the job market. It is a structural barrier to innovation. It's like an economic anchor that's weighing the entire region down. So let's just recap the big takeaways here, especially for other researchers. First, this idea of industrial patriarchy isn't just a social construct, it's an active economic barrier. Second, policies that are gender blind aren't neutral. They actually make the decline worse. And finally, excluding women from these key industries directly suffocates innovation. It's a systemic problem, and that's why this research is so important.
And the study leaves us with this really provocative final thought. It kind of challenges all of us to look past the usual economic explanations and ask a much deeper question. When we look at our own cities, our own regions, and industries, how many of our big challenges with growth and innovation are actually just gender problems in disguise?